Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Media Matters for Anfield Index. The international break is nearly over, people. Just hold on a little bit longer. The Reds are back in action on Sunday. There's still things coming out about transfers and contracts, and there's the general matches and the things on the field. I'm delighted as ever to be joined by the renowned and the respected David Lynch. Is this a bit of a quieter time, David? Is it nice having a little bit of an international break so early?
Yeah, I don't mind this kind of. I know it gets a bit interrupted and it is a bit difficult kind of coming up with ideas around this period or whatever, particularly as a freelancer, but it's so relentless in the other parts of the season, like press conference match, and then everything else you got to kind of fit in between that this period where you do get these odd international breaks and you still get your weekends and stuff. It is, I know not everyone agrees with me, but I don't mind it at all. So and there's a couple more after this, and then it's just head down then till March, isn't it? So I don't complain about them too much, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're just about to hit that 2 games a week period, aren't we? So the madness will start. But we'll actually start with off the field news this week, a bit different, because I know people want to talk about games, transfers, and all sorts. But just off the field, there's a few things I wanted to ask you about. I suppose the biggest official club news is the redevelopment of the academy site, around 20 million rumoured to be pumped into the redevelopment. This is a good news story, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think it just kind of, it gives you, further faith, really, as if you kind of needed it, that the club is going in the right direction in every single aspect. It's not kind of, okay, we've done the training ground now, we've done Anfield, we've had a good go at spending on the first team as well. We're going to take our foot off the gas and see what happens. It's where else can we eke out improvement? Where can investment deliver dividends for us? And obviously the academy is an area that they feel that they can get even more out of, even though I think it's been fairly productive in recent years. So I think really, really good news. You always want to kind of up things there, and we've seen the benefits from the changes at the training ground, as I say, the other infrastructure projects that have been undertaken. And if this delivers in a similar way, then in a few years' time we will look back on this as a key development for Liverpool. So I think really good news, and just again reinforces for me, there can't be many kind of FSG out left at the moment, surely, with the shape the club is in. When you take it as a whole, this is just another big step forward for them, really, and more investment that, as I say, I hope will have really positive impact going forward.
And there has been a lot of impact from that youth team into the first team. But even if it is homegrown, like a Connor Bradley, Jarell Kwanzaa, smart recruitment with the likes of getting Harvey Elliott-Young, Rio and Gamoa, it's still going to be the mix of getting that right, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think you got to acknowledge that not all of these kids that are coming through are kind of I don't think we can maybe claim Rio and Gamoa as a Liverpool product, so to speak, but again, there's a skill to that, and I think Liverpool have got better at that domestic recruitment at youth level. It was something I think they were poor on, really. Go back maybe 10 years or so, they've really upped the game in that front. Trainioni's another one who's going to come through, and no doubt he's going to play a lot of games for Liverpool as well. So they're getting that right. But alongside that, and this is the thing you absolutely want to see, as well as being good at recruitment at that age level, is how good they are at developing players. And I mean, you've just lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, who would have played his entire career at Liverpool if not for wanting that experience of Real Madrid. We're talking about a Real Madrid level of player, Liverpool level of player, has come through from the age of 6. That is remarkable. To get another one then in Jarell Kwanzaa, who, I know he's been moved on, but there's a buyback clause there. He's going to play at Champions League level for the extent of his career. I don't doubt that for a second. Again, came through at the age of 6. He's only from Warrington down the road. You got Curtis Jones there. Pretty unbelievable that they've done that again. Because the thing is, as well, as high a level as you are at Liverpool, the further up you go, the more this is now like a team that wants to challenge the Champions League. Yeah. The harder it is to get kids from your local area to come through at that level, and Liverpool are doing it pretty consistently as well. And I would note, I'd even say kind of Connor Bradley comes into that, Guehi and Kelleher maybe, because particularly in Bradley's case, he was on Liverpool's radar and part of their kind of wider kind of, not soccer schools, but the kind of development centres that they've got all over the UK. So he was part of Liverpool from the age of 9, really. So he is as much a kind of a local lad developed by Liverpool as anyone else, really. So, like I say, it's just a really good balance they've got at the moment of doing a bit of both. He's getting them through from very young ages, but also recruiting really well. And yeah, hopefully this investment allows them to do more of that, because it's in a real strength. And you think, you can't probably sign Florian Wirtz if you're going out to sign a midfielder to do what Curtis Jones does for you throughout a season, plus sign a right back of Conor Bradley's level. That is a good chunk of money over a couple of summers that you can't then put into paying 116 million for Wirtz. So these things make a massive difference. So yeah, I want to see more of that, and Liverpool clearly want to see more of that as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed a few more off the production line come in. I'm going to start this question carefully, and you can be honest. International break, watched a single minute of it?
I don't generally, because I see so much football in the season, and it's a bit of time where you get to actually spend a weekend with your child and stuff. So that's and my wife. So try and avoid it. But I did actually catch the last kind of half an hour of the Germany game yesterday. So that's all I've seen. But actually, I caught a good period of that match as well from a Liverpool perspective. But yeah, I generally try and avoid it because I try and do other things that are non-football based, because there's that much football in the season. So I've not seen much, but I did see a little bit of Germany yesterday.
It's funny because Wirtz scores a brilliant free kick. Gakpo gets an assist, and there are a few positives there. That the Dutch contingent, they finished their international period, so they're back having a little bit of a rest before Burnley. Same with Wirtz, same with Bradley. Curtis Jones didn't go for some bizarre reason, and Joe Gomez has a break as well. I suppose in terms of two players that it seems a bit bizarre, they've gone, but they've not played a minute, is Alexis McAllister and Isak as well. I mean, in a good way, we don't want them to be playing minutes. We'd rather they didn't play in the internationals. But if that's the case, does it not seem a bit pointless they've gone in the first place?
Yeah, I think particularly with McAllister, because Argentina are not short of talent, are they? As good, as brilliant a player as he is, and a guaranteed starter. If you know he's not going to be quite right, that you're going to maybe be able to start him, just don't fly him all that way out. I mean, for Isak, a bit less of a trip. He probably needed the training and the minutes there. Well, not minutes, obviously, but he probably needed the training to be around it. And I think if Sweden could have used him, they absolutely would have, because he's definitely their best player, to be honest. So. I think with McAllister, a bit of a strange one. I didn't actually know that till you mentioned it, that he hadn't played. So, that is an odd one, and a bit frustrating that he's been flown out there for that. With Isak, definitely a shame he's not had minutes. Have Sweden finished their games now? Are they done?
Kosovo.
Right, okay. So if there's a possibility for Isak to get some minutes there, that would be fantastic, because Liverpool, they just now need to get him fit as quickly as they possibly can. And obviously anything he can do on international duty will be a help. I mean, one of those, you look at kind of Conor Bradley playing yesterday for Northern Ireland, and I'm not sure if he played in the other game as well, but that's really important and helpful for Liverpool. So, as much as we say it's a hindrance sometimes it can be a real help. And Conor Bradley's minutes there, if Isak can get any, that would be fantastic. So hopefully there's some kind of bonuses to take from this, which is minutes for the ones who need it. And and the priority, of course, is that everybody comes back with a clean bill of health.
Yeah, that's the fingers crossed, touch wood job. We'll see if that's the case. Wednesday, I think the early hours is the last one, so we'll have to wait too long. And other off the field news, a couple of goals were up for Premier League's goal of the month for August. Which one would you go for out these two?
I do love a team goal. It's, to be honest, I would always generally pick the team goal, and that. So in Szoboszlai, to be fair to him, he makes that Ngamoa goal, doesn't he? So I'm not taking too much credit from him, but so I always kind of lean on the side of that, the importance of the goal in the moment, how big the atmosphere was in that game, how significant that felt with all the Isak thing going on in the background as well, and the fact it was a 16-year-old child who scores it. For me, I absolutely love that goal, But obviously, I appreciate the technique and the brilliance of what Szoboszlai did. I mean, one of the best free kicks I've had the pleasure to see in person, really. So, maybe feel a bit harsh taking it off Szoboszlai, but I'm a sucker for a team goal, because I love the way. I think for me that's what football is about. Is yes, there's individual brilliance in there, but if you can get a team of sort of 11 players to kind of think on the same page and bamboozle the opposition. I just love that. So for me, I would go Ngamo, but I suspect Szoboszlai is probably going to win it anyway.
Yeah, that's where the smart money's going. And we've not really talked about this yet, because usually we'll talk about it. It takes maybe a while to get going. It gets punctuated by a big game. But there's only been 2 games so far at Anfield, and that atmosphere at times has been absolutely rocking already, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm really glad this was on the agenda, actually, because it's something I kind of wanted to talk about, because I just think, I think at the start of every single season, you get kind of this huge debate comes around, doesn't it, about the Anfield atmosphere. It's going down the pan, it's rubbish. And you think, well, it's the first game of the season or the second or the third game of the season or whatever. The stakes are not that high, and generally you get kind of a gentle start or whatever, particularly last season. It was like, really low stakes games, larger games that Liverpool should be expecting to win and generally did in the opening period of the season. So the atmosphere was never going to be kind of electric, but it's just felt kind of getting the Friday night game in the first game of the season really helped. I think that was like really made the atmosphere what it was. And then, of course, there was drama in the game. There was tension. There was a lot of jeopardy in there. And the let-off for Chiesa. I mean, it was like April or something, the importance of the goal. So that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, to kind of follow it up with Arsenal, which is, we know is going to be a big game. It's, you can't win the title at third game of the season, but you can get 3-point lead over your main title rivals at any point in the season, it's worth getting. And obviously to deal them a psychological blow of beating them as well. So that was really good. And again, a game where it was kind of tense, it was tight, it was close. That really helped the atmosphere. So yeah, it's just, I think that fixture list has kind of really helped Liverpool out and how the games eventually panned out. But it was really good. And I think the Arsenal game in particular, I wanted to talk about, because I think the fans deserve a lot of praise, because at times, particularly first half, there wasn't a lot in that game in terms of stuff to kind of grab onto. But I felt as much as the team kicked on in the second half and tried to force it and tried to make things happen in a way that Arsenal didn't, I thought the fans did the same. They really kind of took the game by the scruff of the neck and got things going and got an atmosphere going. And then that all culminated, of course, in winning it late. So I think huge credit to the supporters at Anfield. Thought they were brilliant in that game in particular. But for me, I never buy into the criticisms anyway. I know it's it's going to ebb and flow. Some games this season where it's not great, some games this season where it's absolutely outrageous and the best in the world. So you got to accept that. But it's been very, very good to start the season. Really, it's always good to see that.
And you're speaking of fixtures as well. The next one is just a quiet, good Merseyside derby at 12:30. So that'll be interesting to see how that affects the atmosphere. But you talked about the fixtures, and there's 6 coming up in September. The Champions League, the Carabao comes into the mix here as well. Which of these, when you're looking at them, kind of stands out for you?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you're into that run now of kind of it gets really busy, and so there are some tough ones in there. I mean, you're obviously going to think that kind of first Champions League fixture is going to be quite a tasty one. Obviously, that's a tough test, and I think I'm right in saying first time they played Atletico since the COVID game or the one just before COVID. So maybe a bit of an opportunity to get some revenge there. I'm sure the atmosphere will be very good. And then, of course, the derby is the derby. Palace looks a really, really tricky one as well, doesn't it? We know how good a side they are and the run of form they're on at the moment as well. And, Liverpool tend to have a good record against Palace, but I think every game's kind of, particularly at their place, has been really, really tight, hasn't it? So, a good mix of kind of tough games in there. Really looking forward to the Carabao to see Rio, for example, and maybe hopefully a bit of Trainioni and stuff. So it's a really, really interesting run, actually. And a lot to kind of look forward in there. But of course, I think if you're going to pick one game out as one you want to win and you're really kind of looking forward to, I guess it's always going to be the derby, isn't it?
Yeah, just feel like that'll be huge. Another big game at Anfield so early. And you kind of mentioned Southampton there, which is the Carabao, Rio, Nioni, others like that. Is it simply a case of 5 of them will be full strength and this will be a full rotation in the Carabao?
Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if it's anything but that. You might see the odd tweak, and we've seen that with Slot. He kind of manages squad through a season, but he largely likes to pick a pretty settled 11. So you might see the odd kind of Curtis Jones in for McAllister and things like that, but nothing too huge in terms of the changes. And I guess kind of up front, for example, you're probably not going to have much of Isak in this run. It's going to be he's an interesting kind of sideline there about what that first choice looks like in this coming period. So, but yeah, I think kind of get to that game, and then you really will see the full extent of the squad used then, which again always makes these games interesting as well. So loads to look forward to in this run, really.
Yeah, it's going to be busy. It's going to be absolutely crazy, and then it finishes with another international break. But there's a lot to talk about before then. And even this week, even though it's officially slam shut, so to speak, there's still news, there's still stories, little side bits coming out around contracts, transfers, and other bits. And I mean, even we know Cody Gakpo renewed just before the end of the window. He was quite honest, wasn't he, in the interview, sort of, I think it's on international duty this week, that Bayern did solidly come for him, and they looked at Luis Diaz, and they obviously went one direction. That's the smartest deal, wasn't it, for us to sell Luis Diaz in this whole scenario?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think Diaz had a marginally better season than Gakpo maybe last season, but there wasn't a lot in it. And I think, you look at the age profile of the two players, the miles on Diaz's legs, and the fact that, the way he plays the game, you just think, although he's doing fantastically at Bayern, and I'm sure he will do that for a little while and he'll do well there. Gakpo, in terms of a long-term bet and the one that you're going to keep and give a long-term contract to, he is surely the smarter money. You kind of forget that he's just about coming up to his prime years now. So, he's been a young player at Liverpool, really, and there's a lot more to come from him. So, yeah, I'd agree. I think that is the kind of smart sale, and I'm really glad to see Liverpool have tied him down.
Yeah, it does feel like a smart renewal. We'll obviously see what happens beyond this summer. And speaking of this summer as well, Joe Gomez. I mean, there was the AC Milan story on the last day, but as Fabrizio Romano and a few others reported, this was close to Brighton, and it was all about wages, salary coverage, and that type of thing. I mean, there's a sliding door moment where Joe Gomez is at another club, but it's looking wiser and wiser to keep him now, isn't it?
Yeah, there was never any chance that Liverpool would have let him go without getting Mark Guehi through the door. So no kind of risk that they would have done that. They knew they couldn't kind of leave themselves that short at centre half. So because it was said to me kind of the AC Milan stuff kind of fell through earlier in the day because they didn't feel they'd get a medical done in time, and kind of and once that was off the table, it was kind of said, as I say, speaking to people around it, that he still could go, but if he is to go, it'll only be on the basis that we've got Guehi. So once that wasn't going to happen, Joe Gomez wasn't going to go anywhere, which I think was the smart move. And he just really pray with Joe Gomez he can stay fit, because he's such an important option, and he can, that Carabao Cup game that's coming up, he'll definitely play in that if he's fit. And again, that just takes minutes away from someone else. They don't then have to play, and just helps the squad as a whole. So I just would love for him to have a season of full fitness if possible, but we know it's tough with him.
Yeah, fingers crossed it does work out. And, well, at least he had the international break off, so that's a positive for him that way. And I suppose in terms of departures, it was the surprise of the summer around Chiesa that he stayed maybe, but the offers just kept coming in. I mean, Lewis Steele mentioned AC Milan, even the Turkish window still open. Besiktas made an inquiry, but that got shut down at the same time. It's funny for a player that's not in the Champions League squad, there's offers galore being turned down.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, if any of those offers had come a bit earlier in the transfer window, that they would have been more likely to be accepted. I just think Liverpool are, whether rightly or wrongly, by the way, on that front, I just think because Liverpool, they would have maybe looked a little bit short had he gone, particularly when you think of the role he's played so far this season. He scores a goal against Bournemouth. He's key to the one that gets scored against Newcastle, the winner as well. And, he's just had a little bit of a role to play. And again, with so many games coming up, you wouldn't rule out that he's involved in that Carabao Cup game that's coming up, even if he can't be involved in the Champions League ones. So I'm glad to hear that Liverpool are kind of turning that down and seem hell-bent on keeping him in the short term, because, you've got a kind of half-fit Alexander Isak at the moment. You've got to be very, very careful with him as well. So to have another forward around who's experienced, he's well-liked around the place, but liked by the fans as well. And he got an eye for goal, and he can play a role, certainly off the bench at the very least, but also, as I say, taking up some League Cup minutes, certainly in this early part of the season. I think it's good news that Liverpool are keeping him around.
Yeah, and a few more winners or key goals like the one against Bournemouth would be massively appreciated. And I suppose in terms of goals and assists and looking into the future a bit, we had Lewis Steele on and he was talking about Michael Olise and recent links, and the famous or the infamous maybe buying space on Twitter has mentioned it as well. This does seem to be one that, not for the now, but maybe for the summer after, a long-term Mo Salah replacement, seems to be gathering traction a little bit. Have you heard anything on this one at all?
Yeah, obviously, definitely a player that Liverpool like, and I can't vouch about the kind of the buy-in side of things in terms of that release clause that exists in his contract. But you just don't doubt for a second that Liverpool would be in the mix for someone like Olise. They are going to have to front up to the fact that Mo Salah is not going to be here forever, and I'd be amazed if this latest contract is anything but his last contract at Liverpool. It's as sad as it is to say that, so there's still a couple of years left at least as well. But Liverpool have got to get ahead of kind of getting a replacement, and you look at Olise, Premier League experience, the age of him, the fact he's just absolutely brilliant as well. He would be a really, really good fit for them. So it's too far out to kind of make any guarantees about that, but no question whatsoever that he's on Liverpool's radar and a player that they like. And they've potentially got a vacancy coming up on that right-hand side that would suit him down to the ground.
Yeah, just probably telling of the calibre of player Liverpool are being linked with and seeming for as per this window. So definitely one for the future to keep an eye on. But in the immediate, I mean, yesterday afternoon, Paul Joyce put this out, and there's not really much that can be denoted from the headline other than Liverpool will not try to sign Mark Guehi in January. It kind of does what it says on the tin then. I mean, we'd spoken about this. Was there a sense that you were expecting something like this to come out?
I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but what I did, and I think when we spoke about Guehi after the window had closed, about, I was very keen to play down the idea that they automatically go for him in January, because you just know how this recruitment staff works, and what football's like and how quickly things change as well. So, it seems so logical, doesn't it, to go, oh yeah, well, they've missed out on him there by, basically a matter of hours, really. We're very, very close to signing him. Surely the next time the window opens, you just go and get him. But like I say, you just know in football, it never works as simply as you think it might. So I'm not surprised at all, really, to kind of read this. And again, what you've got to factor in here as well is kind of, is that a bit of a bargaining position from Liverpool? Are they trying to say, look, we're not going to go back in unless you come to us and say you want to do business? But then equally, the flip side of that is, surely Palace know now they've missed the window to get anything that's close to a worthwhile sum for Guehi. So say they go back to Liverpool and say, you can have him for 15 million now, which is what Liverpool would probably want to push him to. How is that worthwhile for Palace? You might as well just keep him for the rest of the season, so it doesn't make sense for kind of anyone. So, the only thing you can say at the moment now is definitely a player Liverpool like, obviously, came very close to signing him. But we will see, because things will, even that kind of thingy, that interest that will be there at the end of the season, and maybe they can agree to sign him on a free transfer. Again, things change so quickly, and somebody else might come on the market who you think, do you know what, if Konaté is going, we need X, Y, or Z instead of Mark Guehi. That's a better fit for us. We're going to, instead of giving a big signing on fee there, we're going to put that money into a transfer and sign someone else. So I think, you just cannot offer any guarantees at the moment about how this is all going to play out, really, other than to say, Liverpool liked Guehi, they almost signed him, but there's a lot up in the air from here, and that's without even mentioning that other clubs might get involved as well.
I mean, that's it. There's other clubs that have been linked, and people are obviously reckoning, is that a plan, part of a negotiation style from Palace in that regard? But as you said, and I mean, there's so many boxes that are ticked: homegrown, Premier League experienced, international leader, and all those on a free. But come the end of the season, we don't even know about Konaté officially, but other targets might all of a sudden become available who are higher in Liverpool's pecking order, might they?
That is exactly it. And it's very hard to say what the development of players will look like as well. So that's players at other clubs, as you say, who might suddenly emerge on the radar and you think, wow, this guy 12 months ago wasn't someone you think of for Liverpool, but he's taken such a leap that he's there now. And where's Leone up to after 12 months in England? Does he make a huge developmental leap, or the opposite, where you need to kind of cover off his minutes completely? So all these things are kind of up there, up in the air, and it just makes offering any kind of guarantees around this stuff, I think, really, really risky. So we'll have to see with this one. I think it's a really interesting story because, he was so close to getting there, and may not even sign for Liverpool at all in the end.
It's a crazy one. We'll see what happens in January and at the end of the season as well. And I suppose with people linking it to the person he could eventually replace, Ibou Konate, there's always positive noises in the UK media about Liverpool are trying, they're speaking with his agents. And then it seems every time he goes on French duty, something kind of unfolds. And I know it was a tongue-in-cheek on French television comment, but Mbappe pressuring me to join Real Madrid. He calls me every 2 hours. Let's be honest, I don't think there's too many Liverpool fans laughing at that one, is there?
Yeah, it's not great, is it? Particularly because everyone's a little bit sensitive around the Real Madrid stuff. So it's probably not the best joke he's ever told in terms of that. But yeah, with that situation, it still is up in the air. Said repeatedly on here, you kind of speak to anyone close to Konate and they always kind of make the suggestion that, he would like to stay, but it's got to be right. The money-wise and the contract length and everything, it's got to be right. And Liverpool are absolutely right to kind of have their red lines on this as well. And that's, it's so... The thing is, kind of everyone will say, we always knew that Trent was going because he eventually went, but you had so many people at the time saying that Virgil and Salah were going to go as well. And then, those people don't then say, oh, well, I was wrong about this. They just don't mention it again. And so with Konaté, it's easy to go now, well, he's definitely going. He's 100% gone to Real Madrid. He doesn't want to sign a new contract and he's going to join them. And maybe, if that actually transpires, you'll be proven right. But I don't think there's anyone who can offer any certainty about what he is going to do yet at this point. It is still up in the air. It's still, talks are ongoing. And maybe, like I say, the ones who are kind of negative about it, maybe they will end up being proven right in the end, because this is one of his options is Real Madrid that he may end up at on a free transfer. But equally, very, very hard to say which way this one's going to play out. And like I say, still in talks at the moment. Maybe they find a breakthrough, maybe they find a compromise, and maybe they don't as well. But I do not think, contrary to kind of what some people will be saying about this, that anything is settled just yet.
I suppose for all the things and the items we've talked about, I've never really asked you this, but if Konaté wanted money that, I don't think he's ever going to get Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah money, I get that type of thing, but if it was up to you, would you put him in the bracket below, as in that below the superstar money, which is what we're hearing he seems to be wanting? Would you do it personally for the continuity?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I'd put him in that bracket. I know he can have the odd moment of inconsistency, but I think he's in that kind of, for me, he's in that Alexis McAllister kind of bracket of kind of a key player who's just, he's not a Salah, he's not a Van Dijk. You hope Wirtz is going to be up in that top bracket, similar with Isak as well, actually. I suppose Liverpool collecting superstars at the moment, but he's in the ones below that, a very, very dependable player at a high level, consistently, generally speaking. They have the odd kind of stinker in there, but that's football. I would put him in that bracket personally, and I think the only question mark over him really has been kind of his ability to stay fit. But, with this medical staff, he did well last season. You hope this season will be a repeat of that. And if they think they can do it consistently, then I think he's worth it. And I think he's still quite young for a centre-half. I still think there's more development in him. So for me, for Liverpool to be able to keep him and kind of cash in on that development would be a major positive. But, I'm not the one holding the purse strings, and they've got to make their decision about what their limit they'll go to. And Konaté is then going to make a decision on whether that is right for him or whether he can get something better elsewhere. So, we'll have to see on that one. But yeah, I would love to keep a young, talented player at the club who I think is going to get even better. Absolutely.
Yeah, for that continuity will be good. We'll have to see what this season brings. And I suppose, speaking about contracts, if I say the names Andy Robertson, Endo, Joe Gomez, and Curtis Jones. Anything you notice they've got in common at all?
Well, I can maybe look at the agenda and say that they're all 2 years away.
Yeah, or less.
That one,
Yeah,
Dave, kind of ruined that one for you there, the Quizmaster. But yeah, they're interesting situations. Obviously, with Robertson's just a 1 year, isn't he? But the rest with 2, and I just kind of Curtis Jones, 100%. It's someone I think they're going to want to sign up to a new one soon. I think he's plays a key role. He plays a lot of games, seems happy. He's a local lad, and you want to keep them in and around the squad. But he's also, it's not just because he's a local lad. He's just a very, very important member of the squad who plays at a very high level. The rest, Robertson's an interesting one. That's kind of, he made the decision not to go this summer, and I understand that it was his decision. It wasn't kind of a case of the interest falling through. He decided that to stay. But whether that kind of turns itself into a new contract and wanting this role beyond this season, my feel is maybe he might just think it's time to kind of move on and see what's elsewhere and try something new, rather than tie himself down to being a backup for another season. Hard to predict, but that's where I lean with Endo again. I'm not sure they'll be kind of tripping themselves up to give another contract out to him, given his age. But again, and whether at the end of this season as well, he comes to the point where he thinks maybe time for me to move on and maybe go and play a bit more football before I finish up. And with Joe Gomez, obviously his injury problems as well means, again, I don't think Liverpool will be tripping over themselves to give him a new deal either. I think it's so interesting situations, all of them. But I think Jones is the only one that you could guarantee that Liverpool will be keen to give a new contract to be honest.
I suppose with Jones as well, because he's kind of known that he's on one of the homegrown, so maybe not a pittance, but a lower salary in terms of Premier League players. But he will be looking at the others and going, well, hold on, you gave Gravenberch a big deal when he came in, McAllister and Szoboszlai. He will want that kind of parity, won't he?
I mean, he might chase that, but whether he's kind of in that group of players, I'm not so sure. I don't know. I think you could make the case that Gravenberch is a more important player at the moment. I think McAllister is as well. I think there's a bit more development in Jones maybe before he reaches that level, as good as he is. And I love him as a player, by the way. I don't know whether he'd just be kind of a step below that. But yeah, it'd be interesting. And it's something they need to resolve as well, because you don't want him getting to, the point where there's any kind of question mark over that. You need to keep hold of him. He's really important, and you want Scousers in the team as much as possible.
It will be interesting to see what happens with contracts. It will unfold in the following weeks. But one that's going to unfold and come on Sunday, Burnley away. I mean, we've had a perfect start in terms of results, maybe not performances. You don't want to be derogatory about teams, but the international break, people coming back, the South American lads not getting sort of back until the early hours of Wednesday, or, not that much rest and training on the field. Is Burnley away one of the ones you'd honestly pick?
If I say this now, though, that will they lose? Is that how that works? I think it's a kind of fixture, isn't it, coming up against the kind of newly promoted side. But I get the flip side of it, of course, is that, like you say, Liverpool might be a bit undercooked off the back of the international break. Atmosphere is probably going to be good. Burnley has in previous years been a tough place to go previously. Whether it is so much these days, we'll kind of see with that. But yeah, it's certainly on the kinder side of fixtures. And one where you'd like to think Liverpool can kind of stamp the mark and go there and play well and get the 3 points. But yeah, I don't want to get cocky about it just in case.
Yeah, just feels like one of those professional wins. That's all that's needed, and you move on to the next one. And people will be looking at it as well. Isak, that's bench at best for him, really, isn't it, in this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if he's going to be bench at best for quite a while, really, because he's just completely missed pre-season, hasn't he? And have to see how quickly he can get up to full speed. I don't think it's kind of a Chiesa situation like last season where he kept getting kind of knocks and niggles that were really setting him back, and that really delayed him. But it's obviously going to, Arne Slot wants him to be fully fit before we see much of him. So I think bench at best for him, really, which is. But you just love for Liverpool to get themselves in a position where he can actually come off the bench and make an impact. But we'll have to see. But yeah, hopefully we get a glimpse of him.
Yeah, even if it's 15, 20 minutes at the end against Burnley. And I mean, because we want to be respectful of Burnley. They have won one of the games. They beat Sunderland at home. They have scored 4 goals, but they have conceded 6 at the same time. There's not, again, trying to be respectful, many sort of household names in the lineup. Anything when you've looked at Burnley, you think so far that could really threaten Liverpool?
Well, I just think you've got to be careful, haven't you? Like I say, because this is kind of they've obviously been to Old Trafford, but first really, really big home fixture that they've had. So, you've got to be kind of wary of that. And the fact that, the atmosphere is going to be up there. The players are going to be even kind of extra committed because these are the kind of glory fixtures that you want to get up to the Premier League for. So, it's a team that did well in the Championship last season. So, you've always got to show them that level of respect. But Liverpool, quality Liverpool should have in the squad, on the bench, the team they will be able to name. You'd like to think it's going to be a team that can go there and put on a good performance and win. But they're going to have to work hard to do it, no doubt about that. And particularly with Scott Parker, he can set up sometimes to frustrate you and make it really difficult and nick a win against you. So Liverpool just got to be careful there, and they're going to have to play well to create chances and win. But with the quality they've got, as I say, you'd back them to do that. And yeah, if they can get even 10 minutes out of Isak off the bench as well, if the game's tight, I'm pretty sure that would be helpful.
It might be Isak off the bench for 10, 15 minutes, like you say. Maybe, the lineup, people will say it picks itself, but Conor Bradley's just played back-to-back for Northern Ireland. We don't know, but we're thinking Jeremy Frimpong will be close as well. Similar lineup, Szoboszlai staying right back for you?
That's the big question, isn't it, really? I mean, that's the one position you kind of have huge question marks over. I mean, I quite like Szoboszlai to maybe play there, but just because I like the balance and how it worked with him there, and I think he's been playing really well. But equally, you've got McAllister doing that travel, whether he's involved in the second fixture or not. Maybe actually this is a sensible one where you kind of go, well, don't need to use McAllister in this one. Just start him from the bench, because we've seen after international breaks as well before he's come back and not played particularly well or whatever, and maybe felt that travel a little bit more than you'd like. So maybe this is an easy one. You've got Bradley, got minutes in him over the international break. He should be looking sharp, back in training nice and early. And, if he's ready, then start him and put Szoboszlai in midfield. And that's the beauty there, isn't it, of having an incredibly strong squad, which Liverpool do.
Yeah, and Curtis Jones has had the break off as well, so he should be ready to go. So there should definitely be options. And even with the Isak talk and different bits, again, it's not being big-headed. It's just the nature of this. We're not after a blitzing 5-0. It's just one of those professional sort of wins and move on. That's all anyone's after at the start of this international break, isn't it?
I'd take a 5-0 if it gets offered as well, though. You want Liverpool to kind of win a few. I said this before the start of the season. I'd like Liverpool to win games convincingly a bit more frequently than they did last season. And again, with full respect to Burnley, as I say, they will probably make us look silly, with the performance here. But this is one of the games you look at as a potential to do that. Against a newly promoted side, albeit away from home. So. You just want to see slick football and convincing wins in some of these. And Liverpool have had a really tough start, I think, on paper, whereas this one looks like a kind of one. So can you make the most of that? Can you get the goals? Can you get your key men off the pitch nice and early? That would be a real bonus for Liverpool. But as you say, the key is, regardless of how the game goes, is to get out of there with the 3 points.
Especially with Atletico coming up in the same week as well. Yeah, any sort of rest or minutes or rotation will be greatly valued. And I suppose looking at the other Premier League bits, that there is a Manchester derby just after for rivals. I mean, with this one, because we always talk a little bit about wider Premier League, if he loses this, is Amorim heading the way of Ten Hag?
He should be, because City are terrible as well, so that should put real pressure on him. I think so. I think he should be under pressure. I don't think they've started the season well. I just don't think he's proven himself to be a very good manager of this squad, even though he's made all the changes to it. It still doesn't look very good, does it? I thought they were encouraging against Arsenal, but then it's just completely unraveled since then, and maybe that was just a poor Arsenal performance on the opening day of the season. And yeah, as you say, if he loses this one, at what point do you start to think, well, you know, we've made the changes to the squad, and at what point can you kind of accept that he just loses as many games as he does? It's absolutely crazy. His record is so bad, and not just kind of, you know, like a top 8 side bad. It's relegation zone bad. So yeah, but whether this is the game that makes them pull the trigger or not, I'm not sure. But it's he really should be under pressure because he's doing a terrible job. And I will say, by the way, you know, he was one of the managers I was kind of quite keen on when you looked at his body of work for maybe coming into the Liverpool job. It shows how hard that is to judge and how little I know at times. And, you know, I think football's tough, isn't it? And sometimes you got to kind of own your bad opinions. And that was definitely one of mine, is, you know, maybe thinking that he would have been a good fit for Liverpool, because as much as United are a basket case, the extent to which he has been so poor there and looked like he's, you know, kind of not got enough experience to turn things around has stunned me, really. So, yeah, maybe he could be a threat this weekend as well.
Could well be. And I suppose the final one, because this is the bit of where there is a number of games, but it is important to say it's away at Burnley, and then you hit sort of a 3 in a row at home. That should be where it was a good start to the month. I know the derby's always difficult, but Anfield 3 in a row, I know 2 are cup competitions. Does feel like September should, touch wood, get off to a good start.
Yeah, hopefully, and you want to see kind of that rhythm start to build. I know I never feel like you kind of see the best of a team up until around October time, really. But, you know, you've got to work your way there. And so start seeing, you know, these first 3 games really were about just getting through with the points. And there've been some real challenges in there and some brilliant moments. But, you know, you've got to but you look at kind of expected goals for, expected goals against. They don't look too great as a picture at the moment. And so you've got to build that body of work and make sure that the underlying numbers are always supporting the fact that you should win the game. And as I say, mitigating circumstances around pretty much all of those games. And they were very strange in their own rights for different reasons. But this is the point at which you want to see them click into gear now and really start to play. So hopefully, yeah, if they can get a good win in the first one and then into a run of 3 home games, what a chance to kind of build some rhythm up.
Fingers crossed for all of those. Fingers crossed for the points. Fingers crossed all the Reds are coming back from international break completely unscathed. All it leaves me to say as ever is, for the time, the insight, and for answering all our questions, David, it is much appreciated as ever.
No problem, mate.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.